Is Trudy here?
Happy to move.
You're happy to move it? And Pauline's happy to second it? Yep.
Sorry, we had like a 10-minute, well, actually, you're allowed it to go longer, so it's probably about a 15-minute deputation on this issue.
Yes.
Are we able to get a response? Because I share some of the concerns of how we're leaving it to the companies to sort of self-regulate and, you know, some of the ways in which the scooters are left, the obstructions, etc. Are we able to get a sense of a response to what's been happening with the complaints and how those issues are being addressed? Because it wasn't really clear in the report. It was very sort of ambiguous.
So
you're asking a question now? Yeah.
So I'm here to advise Council of the results of the process undertaken to select preferred micromobility rideshare operators for the new 5-year licensing period. So I'll run through that and then open to questions. So 6 years since we've had dockless e-scooters and bikes in Christchurch, the shared programme allows the public to access this increasingly popular and evolving mode of transport. If you refer to 4.12, that gives details of the capabilities of the new devices and how we can work with the evolving technology. So Council, this shared scheme gives Council an influence over the operational practices and rider behaviour in the public realm through our licensing agreements with the operators. So we've incorporated community feedback from users and non-users regarding impacts of this alternate mode and taken that into consideration in choosing the operators, the devices available, and we've revised the licensing terms and conditions. So the new licensing is designed to improve riding and parking standards, ridership numbers, as well as monitoring, reporting and compliance. So the 2 chosen operators were selected, or there were 6 applicants. The 2 were selected based on a range of evaluation criteria which reflected our policy objectives. And the combination of providers offers us the best solution to achieving our shared micromobility objectives, and with one proven delivery record of existing operator and technical solutions and wider community appeal of the other operator. So our highest priority objectives were to increase ridership, improve reporting and demonstration of compliance, and our medium priority objectives were to diversify shared micromobility trip types and users, enable technology and improve safety and sustainability. So our licensing, our new license reflects that. Just briefly explain, there was a bit of an error in the reporting in the press that we've changed from a space occupied on the street model of licensing to a charge per individual trip, which better represents micromobility as being a transport service. This is a charging mechanism New Zealand is adopting based on international best practice. And yes, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, Jake, please.
Thank you, and really pleased to see you're doing a per trip. Before I was a councillor, I submitted an idea that we should introduce what I deemed at the time to be a lime levy. So good to see that that's happened. Hey, a couple of questions similar to Councillor Johansson's concerns. I have had residents raise with me, look, they don't think the operators are actually interested in enforcement. They're interested in inventing and showing a lot of supposed enforcement mechanisms, like the taking a photo and the idea that those photos go into a black box. What assurance can you give us that that's not the case? And what assurance can you give us that the number of scooters we're licensing is actually the number of scooters on the streets?
So, Chair, we've worked quite hard to tighten up our key performance indicators and compliance requirements in the new licence. I think it was it was a little bit too open, and we have quite a few mechanisms. We have third-party database information through Ride Report. There is new technology. We have requirements in terms of the parking compliance and guidance, and a feedback mechanism that's more efficient within our new license. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And are you aware of any over scooter deployment? Like, do we know if there has been more scooters deployed than licenses have allowed for in the past?
I think in the past that did occur, but through our monitoring, we were made aware of it, and we stopped that occurring again.
Has any licensees that have dumped more scooters on the streets than what their licenses have allowed, they're no longer operators? No, that's yeah, right.
So they did something they shouldn't. We made them aware of it, and they rectified it quite quickly.
So they're still operators, or they're no longer operators?
They're still operators at the moment.
Right, even though they've put more scooters on the streets and they were licensed to do so.
Yes, but we alerted them to that, and they stopped that behaviour.
They didn't know that they had more of their own scooters on the streets than what they were permitted to.
I couldn't possibly say whether they knew or not.
So they may have known that they put more scooters on the streets. We've made them aware that they were doing something naughty. They've stopped, and they still have a licence.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Kelly, please.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't find it anywhere. Are these scooters speed limited? And do we have any data about the speeds that they're travelling at?
The devices are only allowed, is it 300 watts?
300 watts.
Yeah, and we have geofence speed restricted zones as well, which we can implement pretty much instantly. So we have several of those. The operators can initiate, we can request based on our analysis of what needs to be reduced speed zones.
So if we get feedback that there's a speed problem at a specific location, we can force upon the operators a reduced speed area.
So we only know that the 300 watts. We don't know what the maximum speed is.
No, the auxiliary function only applies until 25 kilometers per hour.
So effectively, that's the maximum speed. Yeah. Yes. And do we have any data on prosecutions or any information, anecdotal prosecutions for riding too fast?
No.
I mean, it's probably more private scooters because, I've seen guys just flying along, and that's incredibly dangerous. Cheers.
Timmy.
Thank you. What's the time frame to review the new contract and see how it's working? We just talked about the parking in the 6 months. Are we going to review it within a period of time, or is it just renewal of the contract or the license when we do that?
We have reporting frequency, so we will be working with the operators on a very regular basis to make sure that we are performing well.
They also have a set of KPIs that they need to report on.
Yep.
So we do have regular catch-ups with them to monitor their KPIs to make sure they're performing as we expected.
So those KPIs include, like tidying up, ensuring that they're getting the tidiness of, that they're not just dumped everywhere. And I presume they've got trackers, so therefore they can hunt them down, etc. Because they obviously need to charge them.
Yeah, and if they're if they don't perform as they said they were going to, that's where we can look to take actions against them.
Because with 3.5, looking at our high priorities, etc., medium priorities, some of them are diversify range of users, etc. So it seems we're trying, rather than say the concerns that were brought to us from Mr. Harcourt, Barry Harcourt, rather than looking at those, we're looking at trying to expand the user range. If we're looking at licensing something, we should be looking holistically at the whole issue, making it therefore more open to expanding. But it seems that we've gone the other way. Through the KPIs, it'd be good to see what those are and how they are tracking. If you're going to review it at some stage, that'd be interesting.
Sorry, Councillor. In that first item there, the high priority objective, what we've
maybe we haven't worded it as well as we could have. But where we say improved reporting and demonstration of compliance, that's the bit that's all about the safety and the compliance side. It's maybe something we could do where we could present a memo to elected members on the performance of how the contract's running and the KPIs.
That would be really good. Thank you, because I mean that would be we would be able to then report right across holistically. So thank you.
Yep.
Cheers.
Okay, just moving right along. We've got one last question from Jake.
Are there any financial penalties in place when it comes to licence breaches? And if so, have we dished out any fines as a result of you've just acknowledged we've had a breach where too many scooters have been deployed. Have we ever dished out any breach financial fines? Penalties?
No, so there's no financial penalties, but if they continue to, I can't think of a better word, misbehave,
we tell them about
we
it.
would have the ability to cancel their licence.
But we haven't.
We haven't yet, no.
Okay, and Yanni, and then we'll get into it. Please.
Sorry, do you know how many crashes we've had? And how many deaths?
Unfortunately not. And I'm listening to the deputation this morning. You know, we do, you know, we want a safer network. We want people to be safe on our roads and footpaths. But a lot of the crashes that occur aren't reported to the police, and therefore they don't come through to us from a crash analysis point of view.
The operators must know, right?
And that's what we've asked for in the new licence under the new reporting system. So we're going to get a whole lot more and better data on that moving forward.
Right. And what confidence will you have in the operators to provide that data accurately, given that they couldn't even know how many they had on the street and breached our limit?
Well, we need to rely on them to give us the data and to monitor it. We've employed a third-party company to develop a database for us, so the data that's displayed to us isn't owned by one of the operators. So the data from both operators would come to the central source, so we can judge it fairly.
Right. And do you have any information? One of the key concerns has been people under a certain age. I mean, what's the age limit? How is it enforced? Yep. And also, what's the limit of people going on one scooter, and how is that enforced?
Yeah, one of our concerns in safety is trip hazards of poor parking, speed in shared spaces, and use tandem riding. Yeah. It's triplet 16 riding. Plus, or triplet, beyond. So they're designed to be ridden by 16 and over, and there are some operational mechanisms avoiding deploying them close to school gates. Again, theoretically, a child shouldn't be able to access unless they have a Visa account. So there's some security issues with that. You know, some assurances from the operators. We are kind of putting the onus on them to self-regulate more, and our requirements in terms of compliance are a lot stricter. I can't guarantee that a 16-year-old in tandem riding won't continue, but it's something that we've highlighted and emphasised in our new licence to try and address.
Right. But I mean, if you just a general observation, I mean, you see it all the time, especially little kids being in tandem with people, no helmets. Is there anything more that we can do? Because we've obviously had a submission refer to the death.
Yep, thanks, Shani. We do need to get work on.
Sorry, but is there anything more that we can do? Because I don't want to. I mean, I get people like the scooters, but you only need to observe sometimes some of the behaviour to see that there is a risk.
So we've implemented as many controls as practical from our point of view as a licence provider. But like every mode of transport and people who use their private scooters, we have very little control over how they behave on the road.
Brilliant, thank you. Andre, and he is the last question.
Yeah, no, just a good point. People breach their licence conditions and things all the time. It's just human behaviour. But you can't expect operators to know the number of crashes because it's up to someone to report it. Like, I've fallen off a scooter before. I didn't contact the operator to tell them because what would I expect them to do about it, you know? So we can't reasonably expect them to hold all of those sorts of things. Just so I need to make clear.
Okay, thank you. Righto, that's enough questions. We've got a mover and seconder. So dare I ask, is there any debate? No, I didn't think so. Right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. That is carried. And now number 13. Tanya, please.